Hi there. We are in session number 10 today, and we are going to cover the rest of the topics under chapter called functions. So, as every time, let's do a quick recap of what we have learned in the last session, that is session number 9, and then we will begin with the today's topics. Okay. What we have done in the last session is basically understand the definition of functions, and a function is a group of commands or group of a program. You can call a set of lines of code, to be very very blunt and straight, that basically does some job for you. Okay, and it can take input when you call a function, and it returns an output. And as I told in the last session, function is something that returns a value. Okay. And you might also get a question, what if I don't return anything in a function? Well, that's fine. It does nothing. But without returning anything from the function, there is no point of creating a function. You have to remember this point, right? So that's the reason, as a definition of a function, you create an object, that is, create a function which is nothing but set of commands, and you basically create the function to take inputs from the user or without the inputs as well. And we have also seen the default functions in the Python, right? We have been using date time and .now, .today. Today is a function, now is a function, and print statement that we have been using since the first session of this course, that is also a function, right? And we have seen minimum as a function, min, max, length of a list. It will count the number of elements, it returns the count. So all of these are built-in functions and default functions, right? And very importantly, what we have learned in the last session is how to create user-defined functions. If you have a specific requirement of your own, and if you want to create a function of it, how to create and how to extract the output from the function. And we have seen how to create a function that takes input, computes something inside the function, and throws the output of it. Again, coming back to the basics and stick to the basics, we use functions only if you have that set of program to be executed multiple times in your program. If you have only one time, execution of a set of queries, set of programs, please do not choose to create any function, right? Instead, you can create that in the form of a code, right? Normal code. So the function is with different inputs. If there is single set of program to run again and again, please try to create function. And then we have seen lambda functions. Lambda functions are called anonymous functions, and lambda functions are a simple one-line coder functions. You can also have a complex function, lambda function as well, but we will see that in the later section of this course, how to create a little complex lambda functions versus list comprehensions and data comprehensions, that is coming up for you in the next second chapter after classes. So we will see more of that there. And we have seen lambda functions, and we have also seen how to use lambda functions without creating a for loop. To create a loop over the iteration, we basically write a for loop, right? Instead, if you have a list, you want to iterate over each element of a list, you can create a lambda function. That lambda function can act over each element of the list and then return a value for you automatically. Alright, so that's where we have seen lambda functions. These are anonymous. That means once it is executed, you will not find them in the program. You will have to again write the code for executing the lambda functions. Okay, so that's what we dealt, and through this process we have also seen map and filter. So map is nothing but map is something that we have used to execute a lambda function in each of the element of a list, right? And that is where the life makes easy without using a for loop. And filter is the one in case if you have to add a condition to your function, you want to execute something but basis on a condition. Filter will basically remove all others which are not falling into the false clause of the condition, which is nothing but if else. It is exactly like if else, right? So that's what we have seen in the last session, that is session number 9. What is that I have got for you on the screen today is nested functions, iterators, regular expressions, and handling exceptions. Okay, so I think nested functions is not something very very new to you, so I will do a very quick take through the nested functions. And then iterators, regular expressions, and handling exceptions is something new for you. So let's spend some quality time there. So coming to the nested functions, as always, if there is a function inside another function, it is called nested function. The definition is the same. for lists, dictionaries, or any other object. So while loop, for loop, if loop, everywhere we have been seeing nested things, right? So as always, so I have a function called Oracle nested function. There is no input passing into this function. And I have one indentation right from this line. I say your print inside the function. Now what am I saying is, okay, to be more comfortable for people who to follow, what I mean is I am writing a nested function like this, and then automatically I'm in a one single nested here. So I would say print you are inside the function. I'm just typing exactly what I have. Then the new line, I wanted to create another function inside that function. I'll call it the same that I have used in the last session, so that you are not, too much of new things for you while you're learning. So this function has got two inputs. So as soon as you see an input, I say y is equals to a square plus b square plus 2ab, as I did in the last session, nothing new. Then I say return y. But as you see, I have a return for the inside function, but I do not have a return for the outside function, right? What happens? Let's see. Let me execute this. I'm creating this function. It did not throw me any error. So this function is created for me in the console, but there is no return in this parent function, right? So when I execute this function, see what happens. Nothing, only one print statement has been executed for you. There is nothing else to return, right? That's what it has. Now, the problem with nested functions is nothing but this function, scope of this function is only inside this function. That means only once you are executing your program inside this function, you can access this function. You cannot access this function outside this parent function, which means I cannot access this function directly from here. Okay, so which means I cannot say, Oracle nested func dot, I cannot call Oracle underscore ab, s square. It doesn't work like that. It throws an error, right? 10 comma 20. If I say no, it says it doesn't have the attribute. So the scope of any nested functions is within this function only, which means if I have to execute this function, I have to specify a line inside this function itself, 10 comma 20. So 10 plus b whole square is what I'm asking. Should be 900, right? So now if I execute this, again, I'm not returning anything. I'm executing this, right? But inside this function, I have a return. Where is it returning? Will it return something for me on my screen? Let me see that. Okay, so I basically run this. Did I see any output of 10 plus 20 whole square? No, because this return y value is again a return into this particular function. But as I'm running outside the function, this function is not returning anything for me. So to return something by this function, I have to say whatever is the outcome of this internal function, that is child function, please return the same value outside. Okay, so in that case, if I now create this and execute this, you see you're inside the function and 900 is the value. All right, so what is the thing that you have to you have to be very sure of using nested functions? The function of a child function in a nested function is always scoped inside the parent function. In case if you have to access that child function outside the parent, you cannot do it. And whatever is a return statement of an inside function is only available to the program inside the parent function. It is not available to outside world. So that's the reason if you want to bring this value y outside, you have to also say return to the parent function, and then you will see the output. Okay, so this is a very important thing on a nested functions. And you can have nested functions, n number of nested functions. For example, I wanted to again create a nested function called def Oracle underscore ab sum. I'm creating a sum of these two and say a comma b. Okay, again this a comma b is within this. I say return a plus b, right? That's it. Now this return is only within this, which means it will be this a plus b value is only available to this function. but I'm saying y, return y. So the y value a square plus a plus b whole square value is available for this function. In a nested functions program, you cannot access the childest or the childmost functions from the external world, and each and every return is only scoped to its immediate parent only. Okay, so again, if I have to run this one, right, I have to always say Oracle underscore AB sum 10 comma 20. Now 10 comma 20 is something that I am saying, but execute this. So this return will return me something, right? But I have to pass in here, so I should also say return that value. Okay, return, you can also return multiple values, by the way. So let me say use this opportunity to show you that. So I'm saying return here y comma this value. In the external one also I would say return y comma this one comma this one. So let me see. Okay, so this basically is done. Now you should see an error. The reason is this y value has been returned to this, but now I should say 1 second. So let me execute this piece so that you are clear of, else I would be ending up creating a lot of confusion for you, which I don't want to do it. So let me copy paste this and then see, it is 900 comma 30. So if I execute only line 6 to line 10, what is the outcome? And I'm basically only running this function here. See, what is the outcome of this? 900 comma 30, right? So this 900 comma 30, I have to also get it outside this. So I have to remove this space because that is an internal one, right? So now let me, this is the one, execute it, the return is here, and that is the same thing here. Okay, and now remove this. Okay, and I have to now say, command Z, I'm returning it. I have to only execute this piece. Cool. So now I'm only running this function. I'm passing 10 comma 20, and this function is returning me 900 comma 30. I'm returning that output to my external screen. So now I hope it is clear to you. So you are inside the function, this print is happening. Then what is happening is the innermost function, right? This is basically being returned by this function as y comma Oracle AB sum. So a plus b is returning and a plus b whole square is being returned. And that I'm actually running by the outermost function. So you can make the functions as complex as possible, but you have to start practicing it. You will definitely see errors when you are trying to execute it yourself, but you should not stop there. Try to solve for the problems, keep going as nested as possible so that you understand and learn the rules of functions. Okay, so in case if this 5-10 minutes of topic in the last 5-10 minutes, if it created some confusion, please go back and rewind. I hope it will be very much clear. I mean, if you rewind and see it again. That is all about nested functions. Okay, next, iterators. Iterators is just a function which is available by default inside your Python. It is as good as using your for loop. What does for loop do? For loop goes from one element to other element automatically, right? But iterator will stop after each element. It is just like an incremental counter. So once you say start at 1, it will say 1. Then you say generate the next number, it will say 2. You say generate the third number, it will say 3. Now generate the fourth number, it will say 4, so on and so forth. That's it. And importantly, iterator can be only over a list. So I'm creating a list like this, and I'm creating an object called iterator, and the function to create an iterator over the list is this. Okay. Now what is this object called? List iterator. Okay. Now in this list iterator, I'm saying first initiate the iterator. I did not start this iterator yet, right? Now let me initiate this iterator to actually generate the first value of an iterator which is newly created. The function is next. When I say next of an iterator, the value will be 10. You see this beauty, right? The first element of the list has been printed. Now where is the pointer of the iterator? It is at 10. Now in the next step, when I say again print the next value of the iterator, it will go to 20. And again when I say next value of the iterator, it goes to 30. Again when I say next value of the iterator, it is 40. Again the next value of the iterator is 50. Remember, once it reaches the end of the iterator, of the list, this iterator will now throw an error when you say next. Okay, because it has completed. At the first time when I executed print statement in line number 43, it was 10 value. After that, I said go to the next element of the list. It said 20. Again, I said again go to the next element. It is 30, next element 40, next element 50. But again, when I said next element, there is nothing left inside the list. So the outcome is error. Okay, so the iteration has stopped. So the iteration is something which is a very, very old one. Probably nobody is using it today because you have much more for loops, list comprehensions and dict comprehensions available for you. But if there would have been any use case that you expect to see where you wanted to just go forward, as the name says, it's an iteration. It goes only forward. It cannot do a reverse operation. Okay, it's just like a sequence function. In case if you are well known into Oracle, there's a function called sequence. It generates a sequence of numbers, right? Starting from some number and to other number. But anyway, in the sequence, you can nullify or you can reset the counter and you can start with 0 again. But in the iteration, there is no such concept. Once it reaches the end of the list, it is done. Okay, that is all about iterator. I just wanted to introduce you to that phrase so that it is not new to you when you see that somewhere in the program. Okay, or somebody writing a program using an iterator, it should not be a new thing for you. All right. So the next important topic for you is regular expressions. Regular expressions is a very, very lengthy topic. Bet me, I would at least take 1 to 2 classes, like 1.5 hours of sessions. We can speak only on the regular expressions. But that is not the purpose of this session. So I have given you a doc or link here, which is like python.org. Let me go there. So this python.org, I have the link here, by the way. So this python.org, this link, as I told you, python.org will be the savior for all the documentations which are by default available when you install your Python. For all the other installation of packages that you do using pip, PyPy is the savior for you. Okay. So regular expression package is called RE, which is available by default when you install your Python 3. So when I say import RE, I basically get all of the functionalities of this package. Now let's see from the documentation itself what all it can do and what is first of all a regular expression. Okay. So the definition of regular expression is to identify a pattern inside the string. Okay. So if I have to search for a pattern called inside this string called Oracle Python for Beginners course, how many O alphabets are there? I have to search for it. How many white spaces are there? See, 1, 2, 3, 4. I wanted to count the number of white spaces inside the string. I wanted to basically see how many uppercase B exist inside the string. Alright, I wanted to see how many elements are there, how many words called for exist inside a string. I wanted to see how many words exist with a word called Oracle. So if these are all the requirements that you would see in the future, to search for a pattern inside a string element, the savior for you is regular expressions. So this is the definition of regular expressions. Regular expressions basically provides matching operations similar to those found in Perl. Perl is another programming language, so you don't need to worry about it. So as a layman language, regular expressions is a way to identify a pattern or your required pattern inside a very huge string. You can also send 100 pages of document into this regular expression and ask how many times you see Python in that 100 pages of document. It will tell you. You can also get how many which pages includes the topics related to Python. You can solve all of these problems. Okay, if you wanted to match it with real world problems, this is where you see. Now, what are the different requirements of pattern matching that you want to do? See, you see anything with cap that you say in the Python for search that I'm going to say, you are matching the start of the string. So every line, if you wanted to see, I wanted to go and for example, let me tell you here. One single thing is I wanted to basically from this file called pfb_session10.py, I wanted to extract all the lines, all the comments from the complete file. How do I extract? So the logic that I get on my mind is, if I see every line which is starting from hash, that is a comment. So I can extract all the comments from this Python file. If I say each line when it is starting with is nothing but this cap symbol, cap and hash from this complete file, it will extract me all the lines which are starting with hash. Okay. Similarly, another one is star. Anything, this dollar means ending pattern. Any line which is ending with some special pattern that you wanted to search is dollar. So let's do this with the help of this string so that you get it, each of this. But as I told you, this is a very, very lengthy topic. It can go until 1.5 hours as well, but I will show you quickly what it is, right? So I would say re.findAll. Okay. What is the pattern that you want to find? Okay. The pattern is anything called E dollar. That means if there is a line which is ending with E, just print that from the string called this. And you see, observe carefully, I have my square braces here. Okay, let's see what does it say. See, E. Okay, so now why did it throw me E? Because here you have E, here you have E, and here you have E. The reason is because, as I told you, I am using square braces here. Because if you see square braces, it will tell you find all. Now let me say find all. Now only the line ending with E and then Oracle string is the one that I wanted you to search for. So let's see. There is only one line which is ending with E. If I don't use square braces, that means it will only find for each line. If I don't use this, if I use the square braces, what does it do? It will find all the occurrences of E. Okay. Now instead of E here, if I say, for example, S, do you have any line ending with S here? No. Let's see the output of this. It's nothing, null. So the definition of dollar is here on the screen. See, matches the end of the string. And I have also used square braces and other braces, right? The definition is also here. See, what does square braces do? Used to indicate a set of characters. It can have all of the set of characters is what it means. It can have E, or it can also have E ending with a line ending with E. That's the reason it was throwing these three elements as an output. Now this is my solution, right? So for example, I just wanted to count how many alphabets E has got in this complete string. I would say final, just search with S star. That means anywhere it comes up. Okay. And Oracle string. What does it say? It says S is here, for example. I'm sorry. The question was E, right? So E. So what does it do? E is here, E is here, and E is here. But I don't want all other things, right? So it is like there is nothing that it has found. But how do I solve for this problem? Instead, you use square braces. It will only give you those splits. Now when I got the list, what will I do? I will say length of that. Now with this particular regular expression, I have solved the problem. What was the problem statement? In this complete string, how many times the alphabet E has been seen? If that is your question, this particular command is your answer. The length is 3. Okay. Similarly, I wanted to split this complete string with each of the white spaces. Now this is the one. So what did I say? See, just said in the double quotes, just gave one space and then I passed in this string. It has split all of this with the help of white spaces that you have got here. And another way to deal with white spaces is not only this, you can also say /s. So let me copy paste it for you. I would say /s. So let's see this. It is the same thing as above. Okay. In case if someone have coded in HTML or CSS already or JavaScript, you might know /n, etc. What are they mean? If you don't worry. You have everything here in this document. You say, let me go to the place to see /A /b. What are the definitions of it? See, /s is matches the white space characters. That's the reason it worked. You also have /t is tab, /n is new line, right, etc. So you can use all of this. So the document is your savior. So that's why, to iterate from the first introductory sessions, python.org is going to be your savior for any of the syntaxes that you don't know. But it is a conventional way of doing it. Today you have Google also. If you can just go and type a question in the form of a very good structured sentence, it will also give you the examples right on the screen. But it is always you go with the conventional way as you see on the screen. You will learn much better. You will learn how to read documentations also. Okay, so find all and split are the two functions which are available inside the package RE. There is another function called search as well, which widely nobody uses. It will only search for a value E everywhere, and at what position it is starting. It is the 18th index where the first element starts. Okay, similarly uppercase P, where does it do? It basically at the index number 7. Sorry, that is 6 is nothing but 7th element. You see skill 5 characters, 6 is the white space, 7th character is uppercase P. You can also use search, but search should follow the start. So these are the important functions that you should know about regular expressions. And get yourself a requirement of your own. It can be you can write 10 lines of string, and you can just count how many lines are there in the string. You create your own use cases and then you try to solve for that problem using this regular expression. That's the way to learn. Okay. That is all about regular expressions. Again, as I told you, the link is also there here. So go through the link, create your own string and create your own use cases and try solving the problem. Okay, this will be there for your reference. Now, the last topic for today is handling exceptions. What is exception? It is a very, very famous thing in any of the coding languages, not just Python. What is an exception? Something that doesn't work, something that throws an error is called as an exception. In Python, if you have an exception in the Python, for example, I am running this complete file in a Python kernel or a terminal. If the Python faces any error in this line, it abruptly comes out of the terminal. It doesn't execute line number 81 to any other lines. Immediately after line number 80, if it throws an error, it will come out of the kernel. It will complete the program. Okay. So it's very important when you're writing a code, when you're writing a production ready code or real-time code, if there are any errors, you have to handle it in your code itself. You should tell Python, if you see any error in this particular line, don't come out. Instead, do this job. Instead, do other job. Instead, do XYZ job. You have to write that. That is what called as handling exceptions. Okay. If not, what happens, as I told you, in any line, in this, probably a 100 code line or 200 code line, if there is an error in line number 48, abruptly the terminal shuts down. None of the following lines will be executed. As I told you earlier, Python is a sequential executed programming language, right? It's a scripting language. Line after the line, it will execute. Now, how do I handle such exceptions? Okay. So for example, I did not create any variable called A. Now, if I say print A, what happens? It is saying A is not defined. Now, instead of using print, I have a block kind of coding. I would say try, then except, then finally. See, there will be 3 blocks that you can make use of if you want to handle exceptions in Python. Try block, except block, finally block. Okay. Now, what does it do? For example, I say, instead of I say print A, I say print A and then I'm not using finally. I say try print A except pass. What happened exactly? See the beauty? Print of A was throwing me error, but when I say included that in the print, it must have thrown the error for sure. But whenever it throws an error, I said go to except block. But inside that except block, I did not write anything. I just said pass. Just leave it. Ignore that error is what I wrote. I can write it differently here, right? I would say print A, but if this command fails, right, do this job. Print I did not find value A. Now if I execute these both together, see, it has went into exception block, and in this exception block it has executed that print command. Okay, so instead of your kernel or your Python shell coming out with an error abruptly, after this what it does is it goes and executes the further steps if you handle exceptions. Now you might ask me, is this only for one single command? No, you can also have print B. What I will do for you is I'll create the value for 10 A value, but I don't create a value for B. Let's see if it throws an exception. Okay, it should definitely throw an exception, right? Because my print B is not there. So what you see, print A has been executed. That's why you see value 10. But when it executed line number 90, print B, it has thrown an error. And because it has thrown an error, it went into exception. Now you might ask me, what if it doesn't throw an exception? It doesn't go to exception block. If there is no error in the try block, right? I'm sorry, I did not create this block B. And if I don't have any error in the try block, I don't go to except block. This is the beauty of handling the exceptions. This is how you can handle them. You see, now I don't see the print statement called I did not find a value A, because print A is successful, print B is also successful. This is when try block, except block are useful. Now the last one is finally. Finally is a block whether this whether the try block throws an exception or not, whether the try block executes successfully or not, whatever you are going to write inside finally, that is going to execute. Now let's see this. So try except finally goes together, right? So it has printed A, printed B, but there was no error, so it did not go to exception block. So you don't see that print statement. But finally, try block exception execution completed. That is there. So finally is nothing but whether your try block throws an error or not, finally block will be executed. This is needed when you want to clean up things. You see an error, you are completed with the program, you wanted to clean up the things, you want to write them inside the finally block. Okay. Now, along with exception, you also wanted to print the exception onto your screen so that you understand that there was an error in the program, but the program did not exit. But you wanted to know what is the error. So if you want to know what is the error, this is how you have to code. I'm copy pasting exactly the same thing, but here I would say instead of B, I would say Z, because now Z doesn't exist, so it should go to exception. Now I write except exception as E or any other character like __E. Now what I would say, whatever is the exception that comes as an error in this block, it is now assigned to a variable called __E. Now along with the line, I also want to print __E. Okay, let's see what does it say. Because Z doesn't exist, it has went to exception block. In the exception block, I said whatever you see the exception or error in this line, you call it __E and also print the same thing. You say here, name Z is not defined. This was the exception it has seen in this try block, and that is what you're also seeing on the screen. So these are the ways that somebody codes in their Python program to handle exceptions. Coming back to the basics, exception is nothing but handling errors. And you can also have this exception block inside a if loop. You can have this exception or a try except and finally block inside a for loop. You can have it inside a function. You can have it inside a while loop. It's up to you. So I have given one example here, exception as a function, and inside that I said print article. Article doesn't exist. So you see this execution. So try is the first line in the definition. So there are double indentation to get into the try block. Now when I execute this, you see article name is not defined because this print statement has executed with error, and that's the reason it went into the except block. In the except block, I have this. And I said print error. In case if I define article inside this, like article is equals to 1, right? Will I see any exception? Let's create this function again so that it overrides. Now run this. It just printed 1. It did not go into exception block. So try except finally. Finally is not mandatory. When you are saying try, you can also see if except is mandatory or not. Let me show that directly on the screen. When I say try and then say print article, okay, and now if I want to execute this piece, see, it will wait for you until you write something for exception block. So if you are using a try block, except block is mandatory, but finally block is not mandatory. Okay, so on that note, I would like to basically call this session. So let me actually say except, and if you don't want to basically do any exceptions, the command for you is just to say pass. Now I'll only execute these two so that your kernel here is done. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to remove these things because now you execute these two. That's it. It went away. And this string is, this variable already exists, so you see the print on the screen. And what if this variable doesn't exist, as like this, it will go to the exception, but in the exception I did not program anything, so nothing is shown to me on the screen. Okay, so on this note, I am done with this session. So I'm okay, I'm open to take any questions now. And what we have just covered, just as a brush up, nested functions. Functions inside the functions are only available to its immediate parent, not to anybody else. That's the important thing. Iterators, it is just like a sequence generator or a sequential, a pointer that moves forward. It cannot come backward. Okay. And if you have to move the pointer forward, the command is next. If you have to create an iterator over the list, iter is the function. Regular expression is used to basically search any pattern inside a text, whether it is number of alphabets, number of characters, or number of words. You want to see how many white spaces are there. You wanted to count how many words are there inside a string, etc., etc. And then handling exceptions. If there is any error in the code, if you want to handle them inside your code without coming out from the terminal blindly, you have to write a try and except block. That is all we have learned in this session. Any questions so far, please? Yes. Questions? Okay, I see no questions from somebody. Anybody else? Okay, so if no questions, thank you guys. Thanks for your time today. Meet you in the next session. We are going to start the topics called classes. I'm sorry, objects. But objects are nothing but majorly classes. We are going to see classes, initiations, and then inheritance and functions. I hope all of this would be able to be covered in one session because I can't break this topic. If I start class, I think it's very important for me to share all of this in one single go. So that is when. All right. That's it. Okay. Thank you then. See you in the next session. You will be getting the links as always. Thank you. Bye-bye.